And we're back. That's good. Okay. We are going to kick off the live stream again here. Let me get some things sorted so we can get our chat going, get all sorts of stuff going again. And publicize the fact that we're back up. All right. Mike, we're back. We have had a little bit of time to sit and digest news about Jack Caglianone and think more about what we think about him as a pick. What are your thoughts on the notion that apparently he is going to be allowed to both pitch and hit as a player? It was initially reported by Jeff Passan that the Royals were just going to have him hit, but Annie Rogers has come out with a statement saying that the Royals are going to let him continue to hit and pitch just as he did at Florida. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm pretty surprised that they're going to let him pitch as well, because not necessarily because he can't do it and he isn't a promising arm. I think promising relief arm. I saw somebody put out there, maybe they let him DH and start. If he's a starter, he's a long way away on the mound.
Long way.
Not that far away on at the plate. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. If he's a relief pitcher, I think that still slows him down, honestly. So that's why I was really surprised that they're going to let him pitch at all. I assumed they would say, if the hitting thing doesn't work out, pitching is a second option. I never thought that they would let him do both, although it's extremely exciting and interesting. It's a new way of thinking, and I like that at least.
It is. And the weird thing is there really aren't any models for it. You can't even say Shohei Ohtani because he's a starter. Like the models for relieving, we were having trouble in the previous segment, Yumi and Alex Duvall talking about what he could be as a two-way player. And we were having a difficult time just understanding how it will work mechanically, like logistically. How do you have him come into a game as a pitcher, like as a relief pitcher? I think there's a lot of complications around that. And so they'll have to figure out how they're going to do that for him. It'll have something to do with the bench and utilizing, maybe losing the DH in particular ways. It's going to be an interesting sort of combination of things for him. As a pitcher, we didn't talk much about him, but he's left-handed with a fastball that goes up to 100 miles an hour. He's got a changeup that's supposed to be plus. Good stuff. Has trouble throwing strikes. He's relatively early off of Tommy John. I don't know that he had pitched at all for Florida up until this season because he was recovering from some form of surgery that ended up keeping him from pitching, I think. And so obviously an electric arm, obviously a ton of velocity out there. The question is, like Mike said, will the pitching develop fast enough to give him a realistic chance to even pitch in the upper minors? Like I have a lot of skepticism that this experiment will last beyond this first initial season, like his debut season, because if he progresses enough as a hitter, it just makes no sense to send him out there and get crushed by AA pitching or get crushed by AA hitters while he's out there crushing AA pitching. It's like they don't have time to wait for him to become a better pitcher. They're going to have to move him up the ladder to hit if he's hitting.
Because he'll be 28 when by the time he's ready to go as a pitcher. That's why I just don't think the pitching is far enough advanced to get anywhere near where the hitting is, and that's going to make him drop the pitching, I think, at some point too. But after I reminisce on it a little bit more, I think he's one of those guys that, because it's mostly a chase rate issue, I don't think there's a lot of people questioning his power. Okay, we see his ability to hit inside the zone. I think as time goes on and he sees more major league pitching, I think you'll naturally see the chase rate come down a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that he doesn't get to Major League Baseball and he's hitting 235. You might have to live with 235 because you might get 40-plus home runs off of that 235. So that's something that we may see down the road.
FYI, 235 is a league average batting average in 2024. And so That would be league average.
And 40 home runs, that's not average.
That's not league average. And so, yeah, I'd be tickled 3 shades of pink if he could hit 235 at the major league level. We had somebody ask in the chat here on YouTube. Make sure you're leaving us lots of questions. Oh, people are already jumping in. All right. Tommy White at 41. Mike, I know you're a big fan of Tommy White or someone.
Tommy Tanks, baby.
Tommy Tanks. Are you thinking him at 41? There's still a lot of talent available. This draft has gone a little wonky. There are a bunch of guys left.
And that's the thing. I told people there's going to be good people there.
Yeah,
and it's because of the dearth of high school athletes that there are, like I said, between 25 and 50. That means you see some of these guys from college that maybe some people think pretty highly of, but have some concerns or a big flaw here or there, or like Tommy has produced, but there's some questions on his ability to not strike out. And there's some questions on his, fielding ability and projectable fielding ability. But I'll tell you what, the guy loves to play. He's been productive for longer than just about anybody we've ever seen, right? He doesn't run well. He's not a great athlete. He doesn't field well, but maybe he sticks at third. And as long as he can get the swing and miss stuff out of control or under control, then you feel like you've got a guy who can be a productive major league hitter.
Yeah, White is the third best prospect remaining according to MLB Pipeline's rankings. We're going to get Alex Duvall back in here. He's got an odd orientation on his thing again.
What if I do it upside down? Am I upside down for you?
You are literally upside down. Just flip it exactly the opposite of where you are right now.
Sweet.
Well, I would, but I've got my phone plugged in. Oh, well. If it dies, it dies.
And so we've just been joined by Alex Duvall. Alex, we're a few picks away from the Royals pick at 41. Who are the players you like that are still on the board?
Well, I would tell you, but my computer's down.
Okay. How about Tommy White? Do you like him?
Not really.
Okay. Tell Mike why you don't like him, because Mike loves him.
I don't know that there's a natural defensive fit. And so, look, I don't dislike him. I think the bat plays. I just don't know that the bat can carry somebody with no defensive home long term. Reminds me a little bit like, this is again, I'm not comparing the two, but like with Tucker Bradley, take my glasses off because of the reflection. With Tucker Bradley, former Royals prospect, it was always a decent bat. It's just such a bad defensive profile that you don't necessarily know that there's a spot for him on the field to not, hit for a 130 weighted runs created plus or whatever. So,
yeah, that makes sense. A guy who's got to be an all offensive profile in some ways, who's got to produce a ton in that regard. A lot of talent still out there in other ways. We see Billy Amick, my guy, Dakota Jordan, who I'm really hoping they take with this pick 41. Big athletic outfielder from Mississippi State. Jonathan Santucci still left on the board. And then further down, Luke Holman, Joey. I know a lot of people are high on Joey Oakey, prep pitcher.
I think Alex is, aren't you, Alex?
Mm-hmm.
Big Joey Oakey guy. What do you like about that? What do you like about him?
It's funky but under control. And so a lot of guys who throw real funky like he does at a young age have a hard time transitioning into professional baseball because they don't know how to control it. I think Hero Wyatt is a good example of that. Last year, people were excited about the Hero Wyatt pick, and I frankly was not. But the thing with Joey Oakey is it's so under control, it's a smooth operation, and creates a ton of deception. And so I think there's a spot there for Joey Oakey to find what was that cat's name that pitched for Cleveland for a long time that threw real funky? Sinker baller.
No, not Carrasco.
No. Hang on, I'll find it.
Mark, did you say Dakota Johnson's your guy?
Dakota Jordan, yeah.
Dakota Jordan, sorry, yeah. He's an interesting one. He's a draft-eligible sophomore, if I'm not mistaken.
He is. Another funky delivery pitcher, Ryan Johnson, is another guy I'm interested in from Dallas Baptist. Kind of comes from a real low three-quarter thing. Tremendous numbers this year. If he was pitching in the SEC, he'd be going in the top 10 probably. But a guy who people are going to be a little concerned about the delivery, and at the competition level, but he dominated who he was facing, and so I'm very interested. I forget the number. It was something like 115 strikeouts to like 14 walks, or 150 strikeouts to 14 walks this last year at Dallas Baptist. Insane numbers out of Ryan Johnson this year, and so I'm interested to see where he goes, but he probably won't go here to 41, but an interesting prospect.
Justin Masterson.
Yes.
That's what I was
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Masterson.
He was really good for a while as a sinker baller for Cleveland. I believe injuries ended up maybe ending his career a little earlier than it should have, but he was a real workhorse for them.
Okay, I'm looking at Fangraph's board. I've been with putting kids down and with child for the last couple hours, but looking at the names on the board that Fangraphs has, kind of in order here. Really like Joey Oakey. I saw earlier. Oh, Mike Sirota has to be number one on our board right now, right?
Not mine.
Everybody loves him.
I mean,
I'm
like
not
Mike
a huge
Sirota.
Sirota guy.
But if I get a choice, I'll take Dakota Jordan over him.
okay. I love
Just
Mike.
because the upside. There's so much upside.
I think enough fluke there to not warrant overreacting to a bad year, but I really like him.
Yeah.
I think he's. I see him as semi-projectable as well. Honestly,
Jalen Flores is another guy I earmarked for the Royals here. Draft eligible sophomore out of Texas. Big power, big swing. Also a guy who I think profiles as a third baseman long term. But I mean, reminds me a bit of like Carlos Correa. Not as good, obviously, but like just a big physical presence on the infield and could hit for a lot of power. Really like Jalen Flores out of Texas.
I think that speaks to what this 41 pick or pick 41 is going to mean for the Royals, which is you can find guys with those kind of raw tools out there still, but you need to be looking for guys who you think your system can improve, right? Or your player development system is really going to be a good fit for. And so if the Royals think, hey, we can help this guy shorten his swing, hey, we can help this guy become a better outfielder, like with the case of Dakota Jordan, then that's something that they really are paying a lot of attention to, I imagine, here is like, not just does this guy have potential, but will he be a good fit for our player development system? That's what they should be thinking of at this point.
What do you guys think of Michael Massey, the pitcher from Wake Forest?
I was looking at him the other day. I think he's very interesting. There's a couple other guys that are college guys like that I like a little bit better than him. In Prager out of Texas A&M and Cunningham out of Vandy. But I thought Massey was very interesting. I did. Yeah, I liked him a lot.
I think if I had to pick one guy that's my favorite available. Oh, there goes Tommy White.
Oh, did he go?
Tommy Tex was taken to the A's at pick 40. Yep.
I think if I had to make the pick here,
What a classic A's pick.
Tyler Bell's a prep shortstop out of Illinois, committed to Kentucky. Unbelievable athlete, great looking swing. I think he's a guy you kind of dream on. The issue people are going to have, he's already 19 years old. So like, I kind of understand that there's some model issues with a guy that's that old already, whatever, but really, really, really big fan of Tyler Bell. Kind of curious to see where he ends up, if he gets drafted at all, if he signs.
Yeah. And I think there are going to be quite a few of these prep guys who are left who are just pretty much decided they're going to college at this point. And we have to ask the question, if the Royals go after one of those prep guys, can they afford one of those prep guys? Because they're probably going to have to pay Jack Caglione slot value, I would imagine, right? Like, and so, they're not going to have a ton of savings, especially now that they've traded that pick 39 away. That bonus pool money is lower, and they'd have to do some.
The pick is in. Have you seen it?
What is it?
Right-handed pitcher David Shield, prep kid.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I looked at him a little bit.
You did.
Yeah.
Prep pitcher. So they must think that they can get him. They must think that they can sign him.
Great athlete, lefty.
He's a lefty.
Yeah. Lefty, young guy, great athlete, kind of a good overall kind of a profile for him. Still projectable. He's not the tallest kid in the world, but when you look at him on the mound, you're like, okay, I can see that this kid played other sports. He was a very good quarterback in high school as well. Yeah, I like it a lot. I do like Shields a lot. He didn't play the best competition in Pennsylvania, but good fastball, works it all over the plate pretty well. Good command for a kid that age, which if we've kind of learned anything, it's that you can improve your stuff, right? And so I think that drafting a guy like this is a good athlete with already pretty good command, improve that secondary stuff a little bit, and see how the fastball plays. And you got a guy that's I like, that I really do like.
Alex, you got thoughts on David Shields?
Another lefty that throws 87, 88.
That's Well, here's the thing though. What have we talked about? We've talked about, hey, one of the things that you can really add to a pitcher now is velocity. It's not like
some people,
some people can. And look, the Royals have had some success doing that in the past. David, you'll remember Daniel Lynch added velocity to his fastball in the minors. That's sort of taken a little step back at this point, but it's still higher than it was when he was pitching at
Bubic did a little bit.
UVA. Bubic has done it. And Zerpa has increased his velocity drastically this year. Now, of course, some of that is moving into the bullpen, but there are guys who have done it in this Royal system. Watching some video of him, I've seen the thing I like about him, obviously, is the athleticism. I think he's got a pretty whippy arm, a pretty loose arm, and I like that a lot in a prospect. He's left-handed, which is great. You hope
he's young. I mean, he reclassified to be in this year, so he's 17 years old. He could grow.
Okay, so here's the interesting thing about this reclassification trend. We know that the Royals are very interested in getting like late risers. They've been very interested in things like getting in early on draft-eligible sophomores. This might be the new version of that. Getting in early on the reclassified guys who, you know, if they had one more year in high school or one more, they would be adding the velocity needed to be a much higher consideration, right? Now, you got to really trust your scouts on this because doing that kind of projection is really difficult. But it is interesting that they're at least trying something like that. I've heard of more guys reclassifying this year than I have ever heard of. And I don't know if that's some sort of trend that's going to continue, but it is interesting to see those guys like Cam Caminiti was taken really early tonight. He's another one. I'm wondering if this lefty, I mean, he's left-handed, so what do you want from him? Throw 5 or 6 miles per hour harder? He's got 4 or 5 years to get there.
I'm struggling to think of who he reminds me of. There's somebody that this looks like.
People in the Royals organization or Royals fans are going to go, well, he's Mazzucato. He's got the same issue as Mazzucato. Now, different off-speed pitches, different athletes, different kind of player, but we're still waiting on Mazzucato's velocity to come up. And he was a high school kid that pitched in I don't know if you call Pennsylvania the Northeast, but it isn't in the South. And, so, there's going to be comparisons.
He looks way more athletic, way more natural.
Way more. He's already built bigger than Mazzucato is. I mean, he looks like he played quarterback.
For the life of me, I cannot think of who he reminds me of throwing the baseball.
Yeah, I'm hearing that too, because that leg kick is giving me something. I wanted to say Danny Duffy to start, but that's not it. It's that leg kick is giving me vibes of somebody, but I can't think of who it is.
I kind of wonder too if maybe this isn't like you wonder with these prep kids, right? Like, are they gonna sign like for slot value? Like, what's their commitment? Are they wanting a ton of money?
Well, he's going to Miami. He's committed to Miami.
Here's my thing, though. You can't take him at this spot unless you know he's going to sign. Like, you really can't throw that pick away. So he's going to sign. Right. Maybe he was just happy to take the 2.1 million. Maybe he's happy to take that. Some guys just don't want to go to college, really. They want to just go play baseball, right? And that's fine. They must have felt him out, and he's like, I'm willing to take 2.1 million or whatever that slot value is, because they're not going to be able to drastically overpay him unless they senior sign the next 2 or 3 picks, right? Like, because there just won't be that much money left. And so there's going to be none. I'm convinced Caglianone is not going to not going to take under slot. Why would he? You know, like,
Right.
and so they're not going to save money there. And so my guess is this is just 2 virtually full slot picks. And, you know, they must believe that much in Shields. He must be okay with taking that. And we'll see from there.
Really quick, what's the name of the cat they hired to run the draft? Brian
Bridges.
Brian Bridges, that's it.
Yeah.
Was kind of famously big. Oh, Ranger Suarez, that's who this kid looks like. Phillies lefty, just a real smooth. Yeah, that's who this kid reminds me of a little bit. But Brian Bridges drafted a lot of prep arms in his time with Atlanta. Yes, Atlanta. So kind of to the mold. Now, the difference is it's one thing to scout them. It's a whole other thing to be able to develop them and get them where they need to be long term. So anyway.
So I guess we're going to see if the Royals do have the ability to add some velocity to a young player and make him, you know, somebody who can pitch in Major League Baseball. They got the tall order with Mazzucato to do that. Maybe him. We'll see.
I'll also point out that
Hero Wyatt still
here,
too, by the way.
Right, yeah. Also point out the trend of the Royals taking guys from – they love the prep pitcher from a non-traditional state, right? They love cold weather, non-traditional baseball states guys. They're late risers in the process. They must love their scouts in – you know, New England,
in Michigan and Connecticut,
you know, in New England especially, because think about this: they got Mazzucato from Connecticut, they got this guy from Pennsylvania, they got someone else from up there in New England.
Hero Wyatt's from up there.
He's up there too, yeah. Those 3 guys, all from New England, right? They got Walters from Illinois, right here in the Midwest, but that's another non-traditional cold weather state. They love these guys who they get scouts to see late in the spring. And I mean, just think about the projection they must be doing on this kid Shields. He is so young. Like, they must be thinking like, okay, we want to get in super early on Shields because they must love that smooth motion. They must love his athleticism. They must be saying, we can get this kid to throw at least 93, 94, and we think he's going to have legitimate stuff. And so we're going to get on him really early, because it would not have surprised me if a bunch of teams were like, we're not going to take this gamble so early on this kid, and he would have just gone to college. Like, that would not have surprised me at all. But apparently they want to be on the ground floor of David Shields. So,
well, I mean, compare him to some of the college arms that are ranked in that kind of area. What's the Holman kid from LSU, the Santucci from Duke, you know, some of these guys, they throw really hard, but there's questions with them as well. You feel like you're getting this guy 4 years younger than that. You know, that's pretty big. That's a lot of time to develop those things, you know? So yeah, I liked some of those guys. I like Santucci. I would have gone with him maybe, but you're talking about the difference in a Santucci's got a couple of years to try and fix some of the issues that he has with commanding the baseball and things like that. And Shields has 4 years, and all he's got to do is increase that velocity 5 years, 6 years. And he's got to increase velocity, and he's got to, refine secondary pitches, but
how long until the Rule 5 kicks in, Alex? How many years you got for Rule 5 if you're a high school draftee? 5. Well, is it 5 for a prep? It's usually done by your age when you're drafted. And so it must be 5 if you're 18, right? Like, yeah, it must be.
I'm pretty sure it's just 5.
Okay. And so he's got 5 years of minor league baseball to do all this developing. It will be slow for him. I guarantee it. They're not going to rush a 17-year-old. But it is interesting to note that he gets at least above average grades for his control and command. And, we've talked about, hey, what's the model of the Royals pitcher? What are they looking for? Should they be targeting guys with that level of control and command and just working on their stuff? Alex, do you have a philosophical thought on what would be best for their player development to target?
This is it. But the problem is, like, at what point as an organization do you pick a profile, right? Like, the problem with the Royals drafting prep arms in the past has been there's no rhyme or reason to any of them. It's almost like they didn't have a grocery list, walked through Walmart, and started picking ingredients to make cookies and you get home and you've got jelly beans and chips and cinnamon.
Salsa.
It's like, okay,
Pack of rubbers. Like, what the heck happened here?
like I can see all these things going in cookies, but the same cookie, like, and it's like just like find something that works. And so now Brian Bridges in his first year, we'll see what other kinds of pitchers he's likely to pick and scout. But I really like that David Shields is a little more fine-tuned than the rawer arms they've taken in the past. A Blake Walters, a Hero Wyatt, a Frank Mazzucato need a ton of development. And David Shields, watching him throw, it's like, all right, add some velo and experience, So, I mean,
yeah, that's the crazy thing. Like, you put him next to Hero Wyatt, who I think did they take him in the 3rd round last year? That they're very, very different pitchers. Like, Shields is much more polished than what Wyatt ever was, and a better athlete, just generally speaking. So, good to see that. It's an interesting approach. Zach Greinke, when they took him in the top 15, however many years ago, he was that kind of guy coming out of high school. He wasn't a power arm. He was a kind of control, and developed some of that velocity even a little bit after he joined the Royals major league team. And so you can be that kind of guy if you're a good enough athlete like Zach Greinke is.
Yeah, and it makes me think about like the type of pitcher we consider a Cleveland Guardians pitcher, like the type of pitcher that often comes out of their system looks a lot like that. A guy who, maybe was a little more polished or had a little bit better command coming in, and they sort of made his stuff better. They made him better throwing breaking pitches and things like that. And so we'll see if that is sort of the type of factory they're trying to create here. It does make me think, Alex, you mentioned the notion, I think you hit it right on the head with, they were trying to make cookies and they just started randomly grabbing stuff off the shelf. Previously, it felt like it felt like the Royals had the mindset that was like, we need to take every type of pitcher there is and then hope one of them works out, because they didn't know, like, this is the one that works out well for us, or this is the one that our development can do a lot with. And I think it's a much better approach to sort of have a good pitching player development, understand what it does well, and then play off your strengths there, because that just ultimately ends up working out a lot better. I do have to ask. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I want to add. I'm reading his profile on. I was just trying to find some more info about his season that he had, because I was watching a video and the radar gun said 94. I'm like, okay, hang on. It looks like at the beginning of the year, he had mono and was slow out of the gate, was 87, 88 early, but into the back half of his senior year was consistently 92, 93, hit 94. So it's not like there's still a ton of untapped velo to add. It's clearly something that he possesses, and that's something that's good moving forward.
And late riser. The Royals love him, man. The Hero, and I hate making the Hero Wyatt comp, but that was the exact same story with him. That's exactly what they were talking about last year was, hey, the Royals caught this guy. He improved his velo 2 miles per hour at the end of the year. He looks like a guy. Hopefully, Shields can come in and work on that even more. And so young.
Man, the thing I always wonder about when I hear about prep players and them coming into professional baseball is, what's it got to be like to be 17, 18? There's no way they're going to let him into full season ball. But let's say next year when he's 18 and they're like, hey, you're ready to go to low A, maybe.
Columbia.
Are you going to walk into a clubhouse with 23-year-old men, 24, some of them? It's got to be weird. The difference between an 18-year-old and a 23-year-old is the difference between the earth and the moon. I mean, it is huge. And so what a interesting trip that's going to be for David Shields. I do want to get a grade from both of you, both from this pick and for the first day altogether. So Mike, start us off. What is your grade for this pick? And then give me your grade for day one overall.
I'm going to go with, I'll go with a B even. Upon reflection of the Caglianone pick, I probably upgrade that a little bit. I don't see how he's going to continue to pitch. I don't see that. It's such a tough line to toe when his bat is so much further ahead than the pitching. But I like Shields. I liked Shields before today. Give me a kid who can already throw in the low 90s, who's a phenomenal athlete on the mound, who's a year younger than everybody else he's being drafted with. And, I'll take that all day long. So add some talent to this lower part of the minors on the pitching side. I would keep going pitching if I were the Royals, because I think the depth of it's just not fantastic in their system. But overall, B for me.
What'd you grade the Shields pick specifically?
Specifically, the Shields pick, I'd call it. I'll go B plus because I really like him. I do. I love the athleticism. I talked about him as a possible guy. I think I don't remember if that was a midweek episode or a weekly episode, but I do like Shields.
Alex, what do you got?
I'm going to give it a C plus. I think there are guys that I would have rather had still on the board, specifically the Bell kid.
Well, the kid from Iowa too, Oki. Was he still on there?
I probably would have gone there because there's a little more in terms of like unique traits, things that you cannot teach. I think Joey Oki had more of them. Size, and so looking at the pick, I try to grade the pick, like with the Caglianone pick. That's gonna be impossible for me. But the Jack pick.
Cags.
Let's call him Jack, like we're old buddies. Hey,
Jackie C.
Pick, like I don't credit the Royals for him falling into their lap. Like it's not a slam dunk that he's gonna be awesome either in my mind, and so I'm going to stick with a B plus for Cags. And then with this pick, I'm going to go C plus because I just don't think there's a lot of creativity to it. You're not trying to develop something specific. I also want to give the caveat. This is our first draft with Bridges. So I want, if this was year 3 and this is something we had seen him do before and do well, and the Royals have developed this kind of player, and then they went out, targeted it, and got him again, I'd be like, okay, that's great. I'll give it an A plus because we've seen it work in the past. The Royals right now, their drafts have been so sporadic that if you're not drafting a player that I think is a quality or has some traits that other people may be missing, and that's why he fell, I can't just give you a good grade because the guy's ranked 41st and you took him 41st. So that was long-winded way of saying I'm going to give it a C plus with the caveat that in the future this same pick could be an A plus very easily.
What do you give it?
They're not the Chiefs. They're not the Chiefs drafting defensive backs. When the Chiefs draft defensive backs, they can take them in the 5th, the 6th. They cash on those guys. You don't give the Royals that same benefit of the doubt.
That's a really
especially when it comes to arms, I think.
That's a really good way to put it. Overall, on the night, I'll give it a B. I'll curve to the first pick because I do think they diversified their portfolio a little bit, and I'm always for that. So I'll give it a B. But I do think that it'll take some time to really tell, and I know it's kind of a cop out, but.
No, that's actually accurate, and it's interesting to think how many different people have they had leading their drafts over the last 3 or 4 years? At least 3, right? Like because Ontivero only took over for a year or 2 in there, and then Bridges, and then whoever was before Ontivero.
But JJ may have ran a draft. No, that was a long time ago. So probably
who's the guy? Goldberg. There it is. And so they've had essentially 3 different people in the last 3 or 4 years running these drafts, and obviously you're going to get different types of approaches. I mean, some of the stuff remains the same. We've seen some patterns here, but they have different perspectives, different values, different identities in terms of what they want. And so you're going to have some different outcomes. In terms of the grade for this pick, I'm going to go with a B for the Shields pick. Because I do find it very intriguing how clean his motion is. I love a guy with a whippy arm, and I think there's a lot of projectability in somebody that young. Adding velocity, adding stuff could be something that we see from him. So I'm very intrigued by that. I would have preferred some others. I would have preferred Dakota Jordan out of that pick. He was my guy, and I thought, for a college player, he's very young, like 20 years old, and they could have just given him some work on his defense and help with swing and miss, and he could become a very, very, very good everyday center fielder. But I was happy with the pick, and I think I gave the first one a minus. So I think we'll just average the two and go overall. For me, this is a B+ draft so far. A lot of this draft's value will hang on what takes place tomorrow and the next day. And so we'll see on that. We'll be back to discuss. I've already decided, Mike, our midweek episode this week is going to be entirely draft coverage.
Ooh,
so
fun.
if you're interested in listening to that, go ahead and become a paid subscriber to our Substack. You'll get an episode every Wednesday. This is called promoting, Alex. I know you remember these days. Go to royalsweekly.substack.com and get a little taste of the weekly midweek episode we run every week. Any parting thoughts, Alex or Mike, on day one for the MLB draft?
One quick one here. I want you to think about when Jack Caglianone and Blake Mitchell are making their debut in 2026 or 2027. And Bobby Witt Jr. is also in the lineup, and so is Vinny Pasquantino. That's a lot of pop for a lineup to have. If you can get all of them there and all of them hitting at the same time, that's going to be pretty fun. Something to dream on right there.
37-year-old Salvador Perez staggers out to the plate using the bat as a cane.
Shaking his fist,
drop bombs.
Trying desperately to get to 350 for the Hall of Fame.
There we go.
Alex, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, I will say, so when they traded the 39th pick, I was like, okay, like I don't love that, but all right. And then now that I'm watching the draft unfold, there has not been a single pick outside of Slade Caldwell at 29, but they didn't pick 29, they're picking 39. And so I'm looking at picks 31, 32, because if they're prep guys, you can move them down, but they're all college kids. You get into 34, 35. I mean, most of these kids are either college kids or high school kids that I'm not super excited about. And in the second round, there was not a single player taken where I'm like, oh man, the Royals really missed out on that, except for Ryan Sloan. And the Royals could have drafted him. They let him go. I don't know what that's about. I mean, when a guy ranked that high falls, you kind of just assume he's going to end up in college, but all of a sudden he's being drafted by Seattle late. So anyway, my point is, good year to trade the 39th pick for a reliever, because I'm looking at the board and I'm not excited really about a lot of these guys. So obviously there's a lot of talent. There'll be big leaguers. I'm just, it was a good year to trade that pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where the wild thing to me is, yeah, they're going to get the value of having Harvey on their team. And if they really want to, they could just flip him at the next deadline and get some picks back, or not a pick back, but prospects back. Like it's not really an unheard of thing here. The value of, we were talking earlier about like the studies that are run about what kind of value you typically get out of each of these draft slots. I looked one of those up earlier today. It's like 1.5 to 2.5 career WAR from the 39th pick. And it's like, on average, I mean, that's nothing. That's what, I don't know. That's
what Freddie Freeman's going to give us this year.
Yeah. Well, he'll give us more than that.
He's getting more than that. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's a slightly below average player in a season, and that's over a career. So thank you so much for joining us, Alex. We really, really appreciate it. We know you got so much on your plate. You're yawning already. You need to sleep. Taking care of kids, you're saving the youths, you're teaching people baseball. It's incredible. So thank you for joining us. We want to thank Josh Kaiser from One Royal Ray for joining us during the first segment. That was a ton of fun. Sorry you missed him, Alex. It was like two ships crossing in the night. Sorry about that. We do have to mention to you that we are very happy to be brought to you by Bet Online. So we enjoy that. Thank you, Bet Online, for funding us to some degree. Yeah, we will be back next week for another episode of Royals Weekly. Subscribe to the Substack to get our midweek episode. We're talking more draft. We'll see you then. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.
Go Royals.